something that has been brewing within me for quite some time. Even though I may not have any full evidence behind it, there are too many coincidences for me to let it lie. So here we go, come what may. Hello guys, welcome, or if you've already seen my channel before, welcome back. I am the Philadelphia Whovian, and for this video guys, yes, you saw in the title sequence, it says, Doctor Who, did you steal my work, or steal my writing? In other words, Doctor Who, when it comes to Chris Chibnall's era, have you taken some ideas from the books I've written about Doctor Who, and aka, did you plagiarize my work? So, before I begin, I said it before, I say it again, guys. Yes, I naturally am not going to have any evidence behind what I'm saying, because in this world where so many people can easily have the same idea at one time, it's hard to tell what is pure accidentally being the same thing, or if it's, hey, I did see this before, I liked it, so I'm going to take it and use it in a different formula. So, without further ado, let's talk about this. Okay, guys who've not seen my channel, I'm letting you know now, I'm one of those people who sits in front of the camera and talks. I have no technological skill whatsoever, so hopefully you can get through this and just try and sucker it out. Suck on a lollipop while you're watching, and I'll help you keep focus. Okay, so guys, here we go. So, those who have not seen my channel do not know this. I am a Doctor Who novelist. I write Doctor Who novels for fun. But for the longest time, I wanted to publish them, but I couldn't get BBC to notice me. And even if they did possibly notice me, it was pretty... I didn't say this before because I didn't want to, have people jump down my throat and say, how dare you make that assumption, but it's true. When it comes to us, the Doctor Who, and especially the BBC, unless you have a lot of power, they're not going to ever take much of a chance on American writers. I am an American, and this is something I've had to deal with for quite a little while when it comes to Doctor Who and even the BBC. The idea of bringing an American in to write on the show or write for the show, even in a novel formula, is not something that they're that crazy about. So, from the very beginning, I always knew that there was a slight disdain for the idea of even considering me, even if there was the chance of me getting anyone to read my work, which there was no one. So, literally, there was no opportunities for me to be considered for being a Doctor Who novelist, but I did want to be, and I dreamed of it. So I wrote in my spare time, and then I got so sick of not being able to get it out to audiences that I said, okay, that's it. I'm going to write a disclaimer in the very beginning of my book saying, I do not own these characters. They are owned by the BBC and by the show of Doctor Who. I have no ownership of any of these characters. I am just a writer, a humble fan who just loves the show. And I self-published it under the express knowledge and being ready for being flagged by the BBC and understanding where they were coming from. But I had my whole, pitch planned of saying, hey, only reason I self-published this is because I couldn't get anyone to read my books at the BBC, even consider me. I just felt like there was no chance, or I would not be treated equally at all for being from a different country. And that being said, I am perfectly willing to give all my profits, anything I earn, to you guys, as long as I'm allowed to keep writing. I will write my novels for complete free, where you get all my money. I just want to be allowed to show my ideas and express them with fans, so we all can kind of bounce off each other. I just felt so annoyed having all these plot lines in my head and not having anywhere to go with them because I had no right to do anything with them. But perfectly willing to acknowledge mea culpa, and I'm willing to give you all my money, BBC. You can have all the money that I made from these novels if you just let me keep writing for Doctor Who in my own way. There was another reason, though. Even if they had considered me, there was another reason. I admit I was apprehensive about writing, even as a novelist, for the show. And I be very honest, and those who've seen my channel before know this, I was petrified of if they did decide to look past the fact that I was an American, and give me a chance, which there wasn't any obvious showing of that. Even if they did consider me, there was a large possibility that they were going to use my skin color and my gender to weaponize me against white men. What I mean by that is, oftentimes we black writers and black female writers can easily be used as a trigger to express the industry's or the media's contempt for white men right now. And you're thinking I'm being paranoid? No, I'm not. I'm telling you guys simply from experience. This happens. This was a big fear of mine. I said, even if I did want to kind of advertise myself or try to get BBC to, read my novels, I did try, but I just bowed out really quickly because I realized, wait a minute, they're going to use me the way oftentimes I've had other people use me, or us black people, where they claim to care, but really they're just going to use us to further their own agenda. And if you think I'm being paranoid, I was absolutely right. Next, with the 13th Doctor's casting with Jodie Whittaker in the part, it took the exact turn I was worried it was going to take. And the truth is, they even did things in the Peter Capaldi era that I did not like when it came to an agenda or, PC correctness or targeting a certain demographic and attacking that demographic. There was even a time where Peter Capaldi's doctor made a mean negative comment excluding Americans in a particular episode. I'm going to talk about that later in a whole different video. That made me really disgusted with his doctor because I'm like, I can't believe they did this. But there was a nastiness. There was a cruelty that was seen to be inflicted of the doctor being used for the agenda of people at the BBC, and I did not want to be an agenda. I just wanted to be a storyteller. So now you know. So I published my first book with this disclaimer, acknowledging to the BBC, saying, hey, this is who I am. I acknowledge you have the right to flag me, but please just take my money. Let me write. All I want to do is just write. Nothing happened. When I say nothing happened, I mean BBC did not attack me at all, didn't flag me, whatever. My book became #1 of Doctor Who series. Then I published the whole trilogy. Yeah, it's 3. I finished the whole trilogy. Still, BBC said nothing. It continued to be #1 Doctor Who series bestseller. Yeah. And it's not me bragging. It's just a fact to show it was very visible to people when it came to Doctor Who in the world. So I'm like, I'm sure BBC knows about this. But after the trilogy was fully published, I published the entire thing, and it was there on Amazon along with all the other Doctor Who novels, and BBC said nothing. Then I assumed, I said, well, if they're not going to notice me, but hey, they're ignoring me. That's better than anything else. I'm okay with that, because clearly they're like, okay, we know she's doing what she's doing, we're just going to ignore her. And I'm like, that's good too, because I still get to publish my books. I went on and published 9 more books in my next series, so I went on to fully publish 12 books, 12 Doctor Who novels, before BBC finally flagged me and blocked my books. Then came the fear, the trepidation of, and I was like, knew it was going to happen. I tried to get BBC to realize I was just a self-published author because I had no choice. I wanted to write for them, but I I really knew that they would not consider me, and I just wanted to appeal to them to look at me equally and give me a chance and see me as a writer, not for an agenda piece, but also not because I was not from Britain and therefore I was not going to be a BBC I wouldn't be a BBC writer. Or British writer. I was an American, but I did love the show. And like I said before, there perhaps are Americans who do work on the show, but they have clout, they have power. I do not. I'm just a voice howling out in the wilderness. I had no power, therefore it was easier for me to easier for me to be crushed. Sorry if I'm getting tongue-tied here. When I get emotional, I'm not the best at speaking. Alright, so, that happened. But then came the fear, the absolute dread. I said, wait a minute, that means they blocked me so they know about my stories. But if they blocked me and forced my stories to be unpublished, and therefore erased me completely, because that's what happened, my books got erased from the database of Amazon and any other database they could have been sold on. That means my ideas are out there, because I didn't just sell it on ebooks, I also sold it in hard copy. Hard copy and ebooks are out there in the world under a franchise that is known for taking ideas from other people. Now, when Doctor Who does every now and again do episodes that are clearly based on other things, often they have the kindness and courtesy to base it off of another Doctor Who episode or another sci-fi concept that's already very popular, has already gotten a lot of praise. So it's more of a homage than it is plagiarism than anything else. Even though it's still not their own idea, at least it's a popular idea that saw a lot of love in its day. But I am a self-published author, which means if you take from me, you're taking an idea that's not really yours. But there's one of the many reasons why I was afraid of watching certain episodes of Doctor Who for a while. Then Jodie Whittaker was cast, and there are few reasons why I wasn't watching the show. But then I began to learn more and more and more about what was in the show, and I began to see a lot of similarities to what I wrote. First, you had Jodie Whittaker falling out of the TARDIS and the TARDIS completely blowing up around her as she fell out of it. That was very much the same way that my series, The Time Splicer, began, with the 10th Doctor and Martha with the TARDIS blowing up around them and they getting forced out of it. And then the story happens with them trying to recover from not having a TARDIS. There was that. Then the idea of, also, with the idea of Rosa, I did not do a hit you over the head statement as it was done with Rosa. I did something more subtle. In the second book of the series, I had Martha noticed something where she discovered that there was a character she was watching that turned out to be Alice Coachman, the first African American woman to win a gold medal at the London Olympics in the 1940s, showing a light on a lesser-known historic African-American female, but in a positive light that anybody could relate to. But then Rosa happens. I'm like, really interesting. Fascinating. Very fascinating concept here. Then at the end of the Imitation Games, the Doctor, the 10th Doctor, and the 8th Doctor get arrested in the same, very similar fashion to how Jodie Whittaker got arrested in The Timeless Child. So these things kept popping up here and there, and then you had the Tooth Fairy, or the villain at the very beginning, who came at the very end of Series 11, which was very similar to, not the tooth idea, but very similar in design to the villain I had of the Time Splicer in the Time Splicer series. And then when I looked on something like nowadays, when it came to nowadays, I saw a little bit more about Series 12, and the Patchwork Cyberman that happened, or the idea of the Cyberman like having parts of his skull showed, parts of his skin showing. That's exactly what I did in my book, The Name of the Dalek. Exactly. You knew about this book, BBC. It was one of the first books you blocked. Then there was another story I wrote, The Space Titan, where it was made very evident by the very end it was going to be one about Mary Shelley. It's another one of the first books that got blocked. And my stories got blocked right around the time that Moffat's era came to an end. And the reins were handed over to Chris Chibnall. Now, these could all be coincidences. There is a very, very big possibility. But at the same time, my books began to be blocked at the same time that some of my ideas would manifest themselves in different ways in the new show. Did you steal? Doctor Who, Chibnall, did you steal my work? It could be a coincidence, but I gotta ask, I have to. Did you steal my work? Did you cop me? People steal from my channel all the time when it comes to content matter about what they can do in, other parts of YouTube, but so I'm used to, being copied, and given no credit for it, but I still have to ask, BBC, did you steal my writing? Did you steal, or did you take ideas I had written, knew about those ideas, and said, well, let's do something different with it? And I understand the impulse of doing something different with what's being written, but again, it's best to do it if the idea you're taking from is an idea that's in the public domain, and therefore it already was given its props, its credit, its heyday. But when you're taking from an unknown person, that then can become plagiarism. And if you're thinking at the BBC and Doctor Who, well, you've got some nerve, you took from us. I took from you because I had no choice. There was no chance for me for many reasons, and it would not have been a positive environment for me to work under anyway. This is a situation literally of, well, you make a thief and then you punish them for it. I was never given a chance because I was different. And even if I was similar enough, because I didn't have the power to really get into that group that you would want to write for you, I was never going to get there to begin with anyway. And even if I did want to get into there, it was going to be a hostile environment because too often, with the way Doctor Who was run, I was going to be used for my skin color to weaponize me in some other fashion. And you're thinking I'm being paranoid? I'm not. because I was proven right. Everything I feared that Doctor Who would become is what it became. That's what really happened. But did you? Did you possibly take from my work? And again, if you're thinking, well, in my books, I clearly referenced other episodes, or I clearly took characters from stories that were written in the show and brought them back. Yes, I did. But I always wrote, whenever I took a character from a story, I always wrote in the footnotes, this character was taken by this from this episode by this person. I always gave credit to the original writer. And again, it's in the public domain of the fandom. People all know what it was. And thirdly, I was perfectly happy giving you all the money that I earned. I only charged for it because I had no choice. Amazon makes you charge people. I couldn't give my books away for free, mass quantities. They only let you give books away for free if you do what is called the Kindle book deal, which is for 5 days you let people buy your books for free, but that's only after you've had them published for a long time. And you've already charged people. The only way I could get people to read my books is to charge people, and it was only $3 per book, and literally, I was perfectly fine going on a plan, giving you all the money back, and always giving you money every time I earned another payment. I said it right there in the emails back to you once my books were flagged. But, there's a possibility that, guys, maybe it's a coincidence that some of the ideas that you have in your writing are very similar to ideas I had before. It could be a very, very, very true coincidence. But I still have to ask, guys, are you stealing my work? Because if you are, what this is Chibnall or the people at the BBC, when it comes to working on Doctor Who, this concept of, yes, we have a female doctor now, we're all about female empowerment, the foundations of a significant chunk of her era was you stealing something from another woman. Your whole stance becomes pointless and wrong. I became what I became because I was put in a position where I had no choice. You had a choice. This is not the right one. So guys, thank you so very much. Sorry for this video where I'm talking about my personal problems, but I have to ask because you can only see people take from your, or do things similar to your writing for but so long before it's like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. What's going on here? So guys, thank you so much for watching. You were awesome, and I'll see you again very soon. Guys, you were great. Bye, guys.